We just began the third blessing of the Amidah, which is really one of the first three. And we see the first blessings of the Amidah as one bracha. We'll discuss that a little bit later. But I'd like to discuss, yesterday I began discussing the concept of Kedusha. Kedusha is holiness. We ourselves, due to what happened at Sinai, are referred to as Goy Kadosh. Goy means nation. We became the holy nation. When God took us as his people, we became the holy nation. We find the first mention of holiness in the Torah. Moshe is in Midian, and he's shepherding the flocks of his father-in-law, Yisro, and all of a sudden he sees something very peculiar. He sees a burning bush, and the bush is burning, but the bush is not being consumed by the fire. So he approaches the bush to see exactly what's going on. So immediately he hears a voice, a malach, an angel of God calls him, and he says, remove your shoes from your feet because you're standing on hallowed ground, holy earth. Therefore, you have to remove your shoes. But why is that ground holy? Because the angel of God is in that location. The source of all holiness is what God is associated with. But I explained yesterday, what is the meaning of Kedusha or Kadosh? Kadosh means it's set off on a plane unto itself, and there's nothing comparable to what that is. In terms of God, in terms of his omnipotence, in terms of being unique, that he's the only infinite being that exists. There's no beginning, there's no end, as we discussed in the 13 tenets of Jewish faith. You are Kadosh. You are in the positive, the most positive context, nothing comparable to it, not to be described. We say to Hashem and this audience, who are you, God? Ato Kadosh. You are unfathomably perfect, absolute, and every positive, conceivable, and beyond conceivable characteristic. That's who you are. That's an acknowledgement. Could you imagine? The Ramchal, Rabbi Luzzatto, writes in his work, The Path of the Just, when he speaks about humility, how does one, if a person is gifted with intelligence, with capability, creativity, charisma, how is a person how is he able, and he's superior to most of his peers, how is he able to put his mindset and his motion and to be able to see himself as humble, where he's head and shoulders above most people? He transcends everybody. He's more advanced. So he says, if a person would reflect and view his shortcomings and would understand what he's not, appreciating those shortcomings, it would cause whatever his positive qualities are to pale because of those shortcomings. Meaning, and I gave the example to be able to relate to this, a person is naturally pompous, joyful, and all of a sudden he gets a diagnosis from the doctor. He has a terminal illness, and the prognosis is not good. All of a sudden, you meet him, that arrogant edge automatically somehow softens, it blurs. He's mellowed overnight. People don't mellow overnight. So what happened to his sense of self-centeredness, his sense of superiority? What happened to it? The answer is he's so consumed and subsumed with his issue, with his problem, that he doesn't know whether he'll be alive in a month from now, everything is subsumed by that negative prognosis and diagnosis that he was given. If a person would only appreciate his failings, what he hasn't achieved, whatever you achieved, whatever you are, automatically is deflated because you're totally consumed by understanding what you're not. That's how one achieves humility, by recognizing what you're not rather than what you are. That's one approach, he says. We stand in audience with God, Ato Kadosh, and you stop and you reflect on that. What does that mean? Who is God? Who am I? Am I even worthy to stand in his presence? Because who is he and who am I? With all my shortcomings, and even the area which I'm supposedly superior. Am I really superior? Or it's all purely based on relativity? I'm relatively superior. The people who are greater geniuses than I am. People who are more accomplished than I am in every area. So even if you get deluded with your own superiority, but simultaneously, what about all your shortcomings? What you're not? What are your failings in character? Or your arrogance, which is something negative? If a person would only understand that and appreciate that, he's not going to behave pompously and arrogantly. So here you stand in the presence of God, which God is perfect on the absolute level in every aspect of perfection. And God is your benefactor. And God sees and knows every nuance of your mind, your feeling, your emotion, your past, your present, your future. And that's the reality. What should a person feel at that moment? He should be negated. He should be ashamed. He should feel shame. I'm not worthy to stand in your presence. This is Ato Kodosh. You are Kodosh. You are set off on a plane unto yourself, not to be described in every sense of the word. Again, if you say the word quickly and you don't reflect and try to somehow focus on what that word means and to who you're speaking, you're not touched. You just keep going. You know, Rambam, he writes about the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. What is the shofar? He says, besides the positive commandment on Rosh Hashanah, that every male has the obligation to listen to the sound of the shofar, but there's a certain subtle message when you hear the blast of that ram's horn. What is the subtle message? Uru yisheni mishanaschem, hakitzim tardamaschem. Those who are sleeping, awaken from your slumber. Come out of your trance. Tardema is like you're in a trance state. You're not just sleeping. It's like you're awake, but you're in a trance state. And listen to the message. Extricate yourself from the vanities of life, because life is too precious to waste. Remember your creator. Introspect. I'm just quoting the Rambam verbatim. Introspect and understand what the value of life is, and it's not the vanities of life. What is life? Most people, they drift through life. They live on a routine. We sleep, we waken, we shower, we dress, we have a certain type of wardrobe, we have certain inclinations. We eat what we accustomed to eat, what we would like to eat. We got to work. We want to achieve whatever. It's the same treadmill. Like you have the mouse on the treadmill. It's the same rat race from the moment you close your eyes till you wake up until 70 years later, they're saying a eulogy. This man hasn't gotten off the treadmill in all the years. And when he finally retired, he didn't know what to do with his retirement. He had so much time on his hands. He had to go to the doctor for medication because he went into depression. But if a person would understand the value of every moment of life and he invests it properly, there's never a moment that you're idle. Because every moment is opportunity, there's nothing compared to that opportunity. Because once the person passes on, these opportunities which have innately infinite value are gone. Therefore, you don't pass on that opportunity. But most people, it doesn't even register. It doesn't resonate. It doesn't even touch them. Therefore, you could say, Alto Kadosh, if person, do you believe God is this, that, whatever he is? Of course. So if he is that, and he's aware, as Rambam says in one of the tenets of Judaism, God is aware of our actions, our mind and everything. So why don't you somehow play into that reality? Why don't you play that program and live your life differently? The answer is, because immediately we go right back into that trance-like state. We're in a trance. Many years ago, I never heard this term before. Many years ago, there was a certain speaker. He spoke at one of the dinners of a girls' school in Monsey, and he was a phenomenal speaker. He had a yeshiva in Chicago. His name was Rabbi Keller, Olav Shalom. Rabbi Dov Keller. He was a phenomenal speaker. And he had studied, he was American born, he studied in Cleveland in the 50s. And his father was the chief rabbi of Detroit. His name was Rabbi Levine. And Rabbi Levine was studied at the Chofetz Chaim's Yeshiva in Radin. And the Mashgiach of Radin had studied in Kelm. Kelm was the famous Mussar Yeshiva in Europe, which was founded by Rabbi Yisrael Slanter's most special student. And he was known as the Alter of Kelm, the elderly statesman of Kelm. Rabbi Simcha Zissel Ziv. That was his name. And he said there was an expression in Kelm that in Yiddish, a cow is called a kelb. And people are very often touched. And when you're touched, usually you respond. But it was called, they refer to it's kelbener hispibus. It's like you're startled like a cow is startled. Usually when you're startled and you're oppressed, there's usually changes in your life. But there's what they call kelbener hispibus, like a cow is startled. And how was it said over in Europe? It was said over this way. There was a location, they never had train tracks. The locomotive, which was known as the hot car, never went through this area before. They finally laid the tracks, and all throughout Europe, in areas where you had pasture, you had cows grazing in the pasture. All of a sudden, the first time, the locomotive comes through with the cars, pulling its cars, and tremendous amount of noise, black smoke billowing from the chimney. And this train is chugging along, making noise, deafening sounds. And the cows, the heads are on the ground, tearing grass out of the ground, munching on the grass, chewing their cud. And all of a sudden the train comes by, and the cows, they pick their heads up. They're startled. And they look at this sight, which they never saw before. And they keep chomping and chewing their cud, looking at this train. The train goes further. The sound becomes less. And eventually the train disappears into the horizon. What do you think the cow does? Puts his head right back into the grass, into the feed bag, continues chomping and chewing its cud. That's called kelbin hispilus. Like the cow is startled, and the moment passes, it's like it never happened. That's the way human beings behave. We're startled. We discuss topics. Did you hear what happened? The moment we finish the discussion, it's like the discussion never took place. Totally untouched. Because if you're in a trance and you take a pin and you put it into the person's flesh, he'll say, ouch. But the moment you take it out, he no longer feels that ouch because he's in a trance. And most people, we all live in a trance. We just float through life. We barely notice things in life, only what we want to notice. We're saying, Ato Kodosh. We're speaking to God, the creator, the infinite being. And the word Kodosh means you are on a plane unto yourself where there's nothing comparable to that. On absolute sense, on the absolute context, whatever it is, wisdom, perfection, goodness, everything. And who are you? How should a person feel when you're speaking to this being and you believe he's listening to every word and he's aware of every thought and every nuance of emotion that you have? How should you feel? You should feel negated, that you can't open your mouth. There's such a level of inadequacy in God's presence, you shouldn't be able to speak. But yet, we keep chugging along and keep saying the words. And if it takes more than 30 seconds, people say, what's taking so long? Have you become somehow fanatic? Do you realize usually it takes you 30 seconds? Today it took you 40 seconds, 45 seconds. You ever hear such a conversation? Yes, but why are we praying? What is prayer? Why waste your time? There are better things you could do than spend 45 seconds in silent prayer, in meditation. You know, you should have a meditation room in your house. You have a sauna. To release all the tensions, you should have a meditation room. What do you have to go to the synagogue and put on what they call phylacteries, which is called tefillin? What do you need all this for? And this prayer shawl, which is multicolored, like Joseph's colored coat. And the man has that special embroidered bag that his mother bought for her. When she came back, she bought it at a gift shop in Jerusalem. At the King David, paid a big price for it. What do you need all this nonsense? What is it, a costume party? But if you understand what it is, Ato Kodosh, you speak to God. You are holy. Holy means in who you are in the context of perfection and absoluteness. There's nothing comparable. And even what we understand, we don't understand. What we understand is infinitesimal in terms of what you are. The word infinitesimal is a borrowed term because it's less than infinitesimal. It's less than microscopic. So if you relate to that and you stop and you pause and you reflect, you have to be touched. And if you are touched, you're going to behave differently. You're going to see things differently. Your evaluation, your analysis, your investment of your life becomes a different investment. Many years ago, when I left the yeshiva, and my yeshiva at that time was nearly 88 years old, and I had a very close relationship with him. It was like a grandfather and a grandson. That's how close I was with him. So I was living in New York at the time, and I decided I'm going to travel to Baltimore on a Sunday, which I had the time, and I'm going to visit him. So I bought an Amtrak ticket and went down to Baltimore. And I was going to spend 2 hours with my Rosh Yeshiva. 2 hours. Cost me just the transportation cost, about $100 in those years, about $150, plus the time, which was maybe 10 hours going and coming back, round trip. And I go see him, and I spend those 2 hours with him. So somebody wants to share with me some information, what's going on politically in Baltimore. So I said to the person, I said, I want to explain you something. What you're trying to share with me is such minutia. It's not worth my brain power to waste it on what you're telling me. So please, don't waste my time. That's what I said to this person. Another person comes to me and says, you went to travel 4 hours going, 4 hours returning, plus the expense to see Rosh Hashanah for 2 hours. Doesn't make sense. So I said to this person, if you all would only appreciate what you have, you'd understand it's more than worthwhile. Because God forbid, when you no longer have it, then you understand maybe you'll appreciate what you had, which you no longer have. So when you have it, appreciate what you have. After 120 years, it's not your choice to recognize who God is. Their God is in your face. And you're confronted with your reality of how you invested your life. Now is the challenge. Despite the distractions, all the things we have in our minds and our own egos, and we can see it the way we want. And you accuse the other person of being a fanatic. No one takes you 30 seconds, why take you 45 seconds to say the Amida? And despite all the criticism, you ignore it. And you say, Ata Kadosh, you are holy, meaning in the most positive, exceptional, perfect state, absolute. Nothing is comparable to who you are. As I said, the word comparable means it's not even the word to use. You're a different realm. Even the word realm it has no realm, because realm, the way we process is, it's within existence. You're not even that realm. And I'm acknowledging that. And I realize that. And therefore I understand who I'm not, all my inadequacies at this moment. That's what we have to think, Ata Kadosh. And you let it percolate a little bit. Just because he said the word, you don't have to say immediately the next word. You can reflect on that word. The Yesod V'Shosh Avoda, which I mentioned many times, he has the commentary on prayer, on the service, daily service, Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, Shabbos, the holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, the intermediary days, everything is based on the Zohar. See, he writes over there, especially in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, how is one touched when we pray? We say, God, allow your fear to come upon mankind. He says, fear is a reality of an experience. He says, what you have to do, first you have to think about, what is the state of affairs in the world? Even before you say that word, those words. God's the creator. God's name is desecrated 24 hours a day by most of humanity, because they live their lives as if God doesn't exist, which is the ultimate disrespect and arrogance that one is able to achieve. God is the master, God is the proprietor, God is the funder, God is everything, and we live our lives like God doesn't exist. We do what we want. How could you be so arrogant? But that's what goes on. So, and you feel the level of disrespect and the pain, because if you have any degree of love for God, his name is being disgraced and desecrated. And then you say the word, those two words, nothing more. Instill your fear upon mankind, that they should realize who you are. Don't say more of those two words. Reflect on it. Think about it. Be touched by it, and then you say another few words. And that's how gradually you make your way through the Amida. But that good advice that he says regarding Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, The Amida applies to everything we do. We need reflection. The weekday Amida, we say 3 times a day, every day of the year, almost. But the first 3 blessings, 365 days a year, minimally 3 times a day. So we say it eventually, it's by rote. I could say it in my sleep, but that's not what prayer is. That's not what service is. You should serve God with all your heart. It's based on that verse. And Rambam says it's a Torah interpretation. What is the service of the heart? Tefillah. That's a service of the heart. By just going quickly through it, glossing over it, and you don't even remember whether you said that word or that blessing or anything. Ato Kodosh. You are holy. The Shimcha Kodosh. Not only are you holy, which is understood, God is infinite on the absolute level. Your name is holy. We speak about the names of God. There are many references, appellations of God, which are unpronounceable names. There's a Torah violation to pronounce his name unless it's in a particular context. Otherwise, it's considered saying the name of God in vain. It's Torah violation. You're not permitted to say the name of God in vain. If one has the name of God, unpronounceable names, and you want to obliterate that name, even to erase one letter of that name, it's a Torah violation. Because that name innately represents something which is the infinite. And it's not just a label. Those letters, as they're conjugated, as they're associated with another, have a level of representation, innate representation, which turn worlds, which are an expression of his energies. And that's why they're unpronounceable. Elokeinu means the Almighty. In that word, every aspect of Almighty lies in that word. Could you imagine? Today, they're able to put on something which is the size of a nail, 10 million pieces of information. Could you imagine? They're able to store that kind of information. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is the unpronounceable name of God. What lies in that word and that appellation is all existence, all creation. Every energy that brings about galaxies, the depth, the breadth, the absolute genius in existence, God's relevance to existence, lies within those 4 letters. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So not only is God on a plane unto himself, even his names, the Shimcha Kadosh. So if a person pronounces the name of God, and we have in mind master, or when we say master, we also have in mind the spelling, which is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, was, is, in the future. And you think about it, it's overwhelming. Years ago, there was a book written that was called 20 Leagues Below the Sea. Person goes scuba diving the first time, and they're going to teach him, they're going to show him, give him a tour of the coral reefs under the ocean and the formations of these reefs, the color and the formations and the various species of fish. The person comes up out of the ocean. It's an experience. He's never had such an experience. The beauty, the genius, the array of colors and the different species, and the numbers of fish seems to be endless. Schools of fish that you could be actually consumed with it, subsumed by it. But what does this all mean to God? It means nothing. As they say in the vernacular, it's a drop in the bucket. Drop in the ocean. It's meaningless. And when you say Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, which encompasses every aspect of existence, it represents God being infinite. How do you say that word without focusing or reflecting? What innately lies in that word? Just giving us a semblance of understanding what we say and how much there is to reflect on and to be touched by what we say. And if you are touched, it's not you touched emotionally. What touches you is something which is the ultimate of holiness. That gives you a connection to God. It creates a reverence. There's an awe. It creates a consciousness. We have a sense of accountability now. To who are we accountable? There's an expression, people who, you ever hear it sometime? Do you think God really cares? Does it really make a difference to God? I'm less than a speck on the spectrum. I'm nothing. But if you understand what these appellations for God, what they represent, what they mean, and he went and brought this all about for a reason, there are consequences, very serious consequences. Positive at the ultimate level. God forbid, in the negative level, the consequences could be literally dire consequences. You know, there's an express piece. It's amazing. I'm amazed. What are people amazed with? You go to the Museum of Natural History. You see the mummies. I'm amazed. You're amazed about mummies. Forget about the dead. Be amazed about the living. Be amazed at the opportunity God gives you. You talk about being Forbes 500, number 3 man. And if you could achieve to be the greatest tzaddik in the world, and even if you're number 10 on God's Forbes list, the innate value of that surpasses the value of the whole world combined. The question is, who's the maven on what quality is and what value is? Evidently, God is the maven. God is the expert in value. And God says, this is what it's all about. If you take that, what's on Forbes list, and you use it to facilitate God's glory, its value is God's glory. It's not the dollars and cents. It's not the mega dollars. It's not that you could afford a private ride to the moon because you can have your own space capsule to take you there. That's not what it's all about. And you'll have a 20 mule team pulling your stagecoach across the desert. That's what it's all about. Because that's about all it is. So just understand what lies in these 2 words. Ato Kadosh, 3 words. V'shimcha Kadosh, and your name is holy. So what is the takeaway? It's not enough only to understand the words and the significance. It's to reflect. We reflect as a human being. We don't reflect. We know things. We're not touched. The key is to be touched. And if you're touched, that's a reality. Belief is a reality. Love is a reality. Reverence is a reality. Life is a reality. Life doesn't mean being a trance-like state. We just float through life and gloss over it, and you miss most of the points.